The following is a presentation of Muddy River News.
Ooh, baby, get hyped to the beat. Let's go, cause this is our jam. This is our jam. Let's go.
I mean, I guess like at that time, you can't really. I don't know.
Who was the actress who played her again?
Oh, Tiffany
Amber
Amber Thiessen.
Oh yeah, still crush on her. Still do. She does like cooking shows and stuff. And my wife wants to watch them. I'm like, okay, sure, we can watch this. She's appears to be a really good cook too, and still a gorgeous lady in her. What would she be now? Mid 40s?
Yeah, I guess.
Probably.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She's playing like I think the mom on some spin-off shows too.
Yes, I know she's been down that road before as well.
Yeah.
So, but and like I said, we talked about our guest, and we'll do that a little later. But we broke out the wine for him, and he's not partaking, but it's in honor of him. Yeah. So, and you broke out. What'd you break out?
I don't know, a girly drink, a frou-frou drink.
You are a girly though.
Yeah, it's juicy juice.
And the reason it's just us is because everybody else is busy. Ashley's, traveling the world as she usually does, but I think she's probably just getting ready to get back into town by now. And it's basketball season, so all the guys are running around doing stuff, covering games. David coaches, as well as I think he's coaching and then working at QU tonight as we record this on Thursday. So
sports.
It's me and you.
Yeah.
And you wore your big hoops for basketball.
Yes, I did.
Nice. Those are nice, by the way.
Thank you. There's a saying behind that, but I'm not going that route.
That's okay. I don't think I could fit my hand in there.
Don't try. You're going to rip my earlobe.
You don't wear those to like work. Would you wear those to bartend?
Yeah. I mean, what do you think is going to happen?
I don't know. You might get a bottle or something caught in it. I don't know. You're mixing a drink and it gets caught.
Oh, that would be tragic.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't.
So Steve's not here. But Steve had some attention on the Facebooks this week.
Yeah.
So
it's constant though. He's always getting dogged on, or even Muddy River News is getting dogged on, and they'll say, "This is not news. This is not news," and it's referring to Steve's daily entertainment op-ed piece, which, I mean, it isn't news. It's not intended to be news. It's intended to be entertainment for you. It's intended to be fun, informational, which that's what this is. So if you're watching this, I think he's sensing that, because now he includes something about, it seems like he's included something about Taylor Swift in like each of his last like few columns. So I think he's doing it intentionally now. I think that's pretty smart of Steve. I do too. To do that.
I do too.
Taylor Swift is an interesting. Yeah, I mean, she will fire up the social medias on our social media.
I don't get it. I even said something. I'm like, why do you care? I mean, okay, she's a young girl, successful woman. Good for her.
Yeah, I think awesome.
Not like we're going to run like front page stories on her every day, because it's not a local thing, and we're like a hyper local news source.
No, but she she comes up on his entertainment section often, because she's like on the top of the entertainment charts.
Yeah, she was just named Time Person of the Year, which people were like, oh my God. And they'd be like, well, Hitler was named Time Person of the Year. I'm like, why you make that analogy? Really? I mean, that's just, yes. Oh. Because the person of the year is usually about was in the past, and usually been biggest newsmaker / influencer, whether it is for good or bad. Ayatollah Khomeini one time. I think Bin Laden. I mean, we've had it, so yeah, they've made it so it's like that.
That's interesting.
So it's been infamous as well as famous people.
Okay, well, I would put Tay-Tay under famous.
Yeah, there's nothing infamous about her. She's a singer.
Yeah.
I mean, again, good for her and her boyfriend. That's great.
And if you don't like her, it's not like, just turn it off. I can't believe that. The amount of energy that people go to express their distaste for her.
I listen to a lot of sports podcasts, sports media podcasts.
Don't spill that wine.
I'm not going to spill it.
Okay.
Got it. I'm under control.
Okay, go on.
I feel like
Sorry.
2 sips.
All right, okay.
I guess I don't need a coaster since it's got a stem, right?
Yeah.
I guess that was your bartender skill should show through that. We don't need coasters with stems.
Why are we using these Mizzou coasters anyway?
Because we are. Just because you can remember KU House. I don't want to hear it. What was I saying?
You were listening to the sports?
Yeah, and this guy's like, it's just so annoying. We see your face all the time. I'm like, dude, settle down. Just...
Is her face that
It's like, why are we showing a picture of her celebrating after Isaiah Pacheco scores a touchdown for the Chiefs? It's like, well, you're going to show fans anyway. It's like, what do you care?
Show a pretty one.
And the fact is, you've got your 20-some-odd million who are going to watch that game regardless. There will be more people watching because of her. Nobody's going to turn it off. It's like all those people who when Colin Kaepernick took the knees, like, I'm done with the NFL. I'm just woke. I'm not going to watch that anymore. Well, okay, great. More for me then, because I've been watching the NFL since I was 5 years old, and I'm going to continue to watch the NFL every Sunday and every time there's a primetime game on, no matter how hideous it is, although before, like tonight's game later on tonight is Patriots, Steelers, and each team has their backup quarterback, so it's going to be really gross, but I might watch it anyway because I bet the under. So,
who is the Super Bowl entertainment this year? Have they announced that yet?
I'm sure they have, but I don't know.
Oh,
it was the pregnant woman last year, right?
It was Rihanna.
Yeah, she was pregnant.
Pregnant woman. Is that how you figure?
That's how I remember. She was pregnant.
Yeah, well, maybe our guest knows. He's a pop culture.
I'm sure he knows.
Person.
I'm sure he does. That's why we wore our respective pop culture shirts.
Yes.
So anyway, and a lot of good stuff to talk about too. And God love him, he brought us a present back.
Oh, yeah?
From Columbia, Missouri.
Cool.
And
Columbia.
He had to go to yes, Mizzou. He had to go there today for work. So we're going to enjoy what he brought us and talk a little bit. We're not going to talk about a lot of local sports, though, because that's not why. He does that all the time for his day job. He does that with our buddy Shock.
Okay.
We're going to talk about other stuff. We're going to talk about cool stuff.
That sounds
Again,
good.
you guys are going to find out you have so much in common when it comes to like TV shows and stuff like that and streaming and stuff. You guys are going to become besties. You're going to go have coffee. It's going to be great.
All right.
You trust me, right?
I mean, yeah, I'm looking forward to actually meeting him officially.
All right. We will here in just a minute. Be right back. AMB Properties is Quincy's largest apartment rental company with hundreds of units available. They offer short-term and long-term rentals with 1 up to 4 bedroom apartments. AMB Properties meets the needs of its tenants with care, compassion, and a quality of service that exceeds expectations. AMB Properties also has a convenient tenant app for you to do your payments or make repair requests. Give them a call today. A&B Properties, 217-919-8080, Quincy.
The Liquor Booth is your home for a huge selection of beer, wine, and spirits. The Liquor Booth has 2 locations in Quincy, 3520 Broadway and 1500 North 12th Street. The Liquor Booth, where it's always happy hour.
I'm going to reprimand you if you don't eat the pizza.
I'll listen.
I'm going to write you up. I've never written up anybody in 2.5 years of Muddy River News.
I'm not arguing about eating the pizza. I'll eat the pizza.
Okay.
But
just not
yeah.
on camera.
No, I don't really want, unless, again, you sit here and you talk about
being
sports.
The HR director, that's the kind of leeway I have with my people. So one of the reasons I love this man who is here with us today, Chris Duerr, is not just because he's fantastic at his job and he's just a really great all-around guy, but we have many shared enjoyments, one of which is Shakespeares Pizza from Columbia, Missouri. And since he was in Columbia on work earlier in the day, he brought a little pie back for us. God love you.
If you've not had Shakespeare's Pizza, you owe it to yourself.
Oh, my gosh.
You owe it to yourself, and it's part of the essential Mizzou experience.
It is.
I don't know how many different times, late night study sessions, cram sessions, meeting with people for classes, that Shakespeare's was the deal, and it is the deal.
Okay, I have a dumb question. Is Shakespeare's, are those the same?
It's not the same as the chain.
Okay.
Very specific, 3 restaurants in Columbia, which tells you how popular they are. Columbia is not that gigantic of a metroplex, but they have 3 different ones now that they've set up just because of the alums and the students and all that is involved.
Nice.
I'm a couple years older than Chris is, but when I went there, number 1, Columbia was about half the size it is now, and number 2, there's only 1 Shakespeare's, but it was on campus, it was right next to the J School. So when I had classes at Walter Williams Hall or Gannett or Neff or whatever, lunchtime was generally a slice and a Coke for like $1.25.
And you couldn't get near the place.
Oh my God, no! And it was like, okay, I had like a 9:40 class, and it's like, okay, it'll be over like 10:30 roughly. I gotta study, or and again, this was like pre-text, pre-anything, so you actually could sit down and read a book and study before and not be distracted. And that would make sure I was one of the first people there on, like, it was usually Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Did you have, like, when you had money in your pocket, and I know that was rare for both of us when we were in college, but did you have a favorite Columbia haunt back in the day, like if you were going to go out on a date, or if you had a few bucks and you wanted to treat yourself? Is there a place you went, Bob?
Hayden House.
Did you?
Yeah.
I went to Glenn's Cafe.
And, yeah, Glenn's was great.
And I had such a thing for red beans and rice. And I went back, and Glenn's is still there, but they don't have the red beans and rice.
I can't believe they don't.
Disappointed.
Murray's
was always good.
Murray's for jazz. So, but anyway, this is a lot of Mizzou stuff. But again, one of the things we're talking about with Chris is we had him suggest a wine, and our friend Frankie pulled a bottle from his cellar, because Frankie's kind of a bougie wine guy too, and it's a Malbec. And you want to explain this Malbec that we're drinking?
You're drinking the Alamo Selects Alt Malbec, which is kind of a very nice sub $20 wine that you can get and goes great. That is a great wine if you're cooking up a medium rare ribeye tonight.
Or pizza?
Eating Shakespeare's Pizza.
It matches and pairs well with pepperoni pizza as well from Shakespeare's.
Well, that sounds lovely.
Why don't you get to know Chris a little bit while I
enjoy your
partake.
pizza? Sure. You're going to eat in front of this is funny. So we don't know one another really until just now. We just met for the first time, except for I see you occasionally at the gym.
Yes, ma'am.
You probably go way more than I do because I've been falling off that track. Do you still go to the gym regularly?
I do. For me, it's stress release. It's the only thing that really keeps me sane.
Yeah.
And as you probably well know, with all the pressures that we go through, there's nothing quite like the endorphin kick in after a workout, and you just kind of feel centered and balanced.
Yep.
So I find more now, because I've reached a certain age, that there are times that I look enviously when I go to the Croc Center at the elderly women who are bouncing down in the pool doing water aerobics, that maybe that's the better solution for me someday when everything hurts the next day.
Oh, no. I love seeing them there when they're actually, they're very inspiring.
They
Are you usually lifting, right?
I'm still lifting, and probably lifting too much for my own good, because I do have joint pain now, and some days I wake up and I'm great. Some days I wake up and the shoulders feel like somebody took a hatchet to it.
I think that's part of it. What are you generally listening to in your
I don't. I can't do music when I work out.
Do you listen to a podcast or anything?
No, I don't do any of it. I'm old school and kind of hardcore about just being present in the workout.
So then are people constantly coming up to you during
it's not really that bad. I think people have some respect, but because you don't have a lot of time, and I think people who are at a gym generally understand, but people will come up, and people are generally incredibly nice, and usually I'll do a set and I'll take a lap, and usually it's during that lap that people will talk to me. So it works out really well.
That's nice.
Yeah.
I want to say, without doing the actual math and statistics, you are the longest tenured sports director in this market. Is that a fair statement? Or
that's...
It's to be at the same location. Let's make that clear, because you got to remember Steve Luton went from KHQA to WGEX, from KTVO to KHQA to WGM. He had the trifecta. So, I always thought you might bring Fred Beck over, and he might try to make that happen too. But and you've been doing this for 30 years. And this is only if you count our alma mater at Mizzou, and you worked at KOMU. I love the picture of you and Nooner today, by the way.
It was phenomenal. I have not seen Brian Nooner, who was my mentor probably in 25 years.
I had Dan Lucy and Brian Nooner, so I had both of them. Lucy was leaving just as I was, because I started out there as a sophomore being a recuts editor. Okay. So I got actually paid to be out there.
That's a beautiful kid.
Oh my gosh. And and they always, because the other recuts editors tend to not be, I just want to be out there. I want to learn. I want to edit. I want to be around the action. So I ended up doing that. And you always did it for like the 10 o'clock newscast. And I would be out there 4 or 5 nights a week. And then you just go out with everybody after the cast, and it was great. But KOMU, KRCG, and KHQA, right?
I've been very fortunate in my mentors, both Brian Nooner and the great Rod Smith, who is the nicest human being to be found anywhere on the planet, and still going at it strong at KRCG in Jefferson City. So I'm very blessed by that, and part of the process of being in this position for 30 years now is feeling some sense of stewardship to the younger guys that come along. And it's really kind of cool, the group of guys that I've had over the course of that 30 years, some of whom have gone on to great success. If you've been watching the Food Network lately and watched Tyler Fulgham on Flavortown Academy, just like that is so cool to believe that he got his start here with us for a year, and now he's on ESPN, and now he's he always had the food thing. He had always pitched an idea of coming to the tri-states and going to different places and different haunts and different small towns and kind of doing his Tyler food review. So to see him, no spoilers, I won't give away how he did on the show, but to see him in that setting has been very, very cool the last couple of weeks. It's kind of a full circle moment.
Are you, you're obviously are you a big foodie too?
I am. It's probably my biggest hobby. I like to eat and I like to cook.
Really?
So I enjoy both of those things very much.
Obviously, that kind of goes hand in hand. Like you have to, when you do that, you do have to go to the gym. So, okay.
Exactly.
I can
You
see
do?
about, well, sometimes, yeah.
Who knew?
God. Okay, foodie. What's the best, and I like how you use the word haunt. I love that. What's the best haunt in Quincy for your food place?
So there are a bunch of places, and I will tell you this story. When I first moved to town in 1995, sight unseen, knew nothing about Quincy coming in. When you walk in the door, the Visitors Bureau and Convention Center handed you a magazine. And that magazine had all the stuff that goes on in town, like we had monthly and whatever, and it had all the restaurants. And I opened it up at the time, and under ethnic restaurants, it listed Pizza Hut, and I thought, what a horrible mistake I've made.
No Taco Bell when you first got here?
No Taco Bell when I first got here either in 95.
It's Taco Baco now.
Because my buddy Steve Hawkins, during his first tour of duty here, one of the things he was the most excited about back then was we got Taco Bell because he had it out in California, and it's like, really, you're this? Oh yeah, and he goes, look, it's because of course he's like of that opinion. He's a Ventura County guy, real Mexican food, and he's like, he's just, and as much as we love the McLeans, that Tower and Gem City don't cut it for him. He's a big Abbey guy, of course, and he was. I remember his glee when we got Taco Bell.
Well, think about where we are now, though. We have farm-to-table restaurants.
Yeah.
We have a good Thai restaurant. We have a phenomenal Korean restaurant, which, to answer your question, Soul to Soul is probably my favorite.
Really?
And we
what
talked
do you
about,
get there?
Well, we talked about they do some fusion apart from the really great regular menu. I always get the japache when it's on there. I love the sweet potato noodles. I think they do such a great job with their pork belly on top of it.
Ooh, I love pork belly.
Yeah,
That sounds
pork
good.
belly done with that is perfect. But they did a pork belly version of red beans and rice. And it's my favorite meal that I've ever eaten in Quincy. So they're up there. I like 8 Open. I think, when you talk about breakfast, I think Times Square ranks with anybody, anywhere in the country. I mean, I think we've done really well for ourselves as a city now.
Absolutely.
Compared to where we were in 1995 food-wise.
Oh my God. Red beans and rice compared to the red beans and rice?
Totally different because they had the Korean twist to them. So it wasn't like the red beans and rice that I had come to expect, but they were so good. I mean, and so different. And I love the idea of deconstructing food and turning it into something else that maybe you didn't think it was. And I think they do a really great job of that.
My husband has been making spaghetti, and then we put eggs over easy underneath. You put it on between the meat sauce and the noodles. It's something unexpected, but it's...
Does it work?
Oh my gosh. Do you like eggs over easy?
I love eggs over easy.
Okay, so leftover pizza, that's the Brittany, where you take leftover pizza and you fry an egg over easy. I always have to Snapchat that to people, so people are calling it the Brittany and they snap it back at me. But yeah, try egg over easy on a pizza.
My new thing with pizza is hot honey.
Ooh.
Honey that is infused with peppers. It's
like that Mike's hot honey?
Yes. Super expensive because of the bumblebee thing, but you put it on pizza the next morning. It has a kick and it adds a certain sweetness. So that's the Chris, like the Brittany.
The Chris. I like it. I'm going to try some honey on pizza.
I think the first time I ever put an egg on something that wasn't a horseshoe or just beside some bacon was probably on a burger at Times Square.
Yeah,
and it was my kids who were like, "You got to get an egg on that."
You had never had an egg on a burger before?
Changes everything.
No, I was like, "Wow, this is
really
throwing
an egg over easy on top of it. Boom, there's your protein, and who cares if you're eating the pizza?"
Well, and that's you talk about Times Square, that great hash they do with the soft boiled eggs on top of them, and you break that open. And I love corned beef hash; it's one of my favorite things, and they do it as well as anybody. So. Beautiful stuff.
So again, so you came from, and originally we mentioned California earlier, and you came here from Sacramento, California, to go to the world's oldest and finest school of journalism.
Did.
And that's Mizzou.
I understand.
Okay.
I understand. But man, I can't believe that's a. Is it really? It was because of the great.
It was. I had a mentor in the business, and I spent my first year and a half of my college experience at USC, Southern California, in Los Angeles, and hated every minute of it.
Was there like a TriState Shock from going from the coast to?
So the honest to God's truth of it is Sacramento is a lot more like Quincy, Illinois than it is like Los Angeles, which is, I always kind of found, they talk about the coast, 5 miles in, California might as well be Nebraska. So I always got a much better vibe in the Midwest. And, Columbia is an easy town. I'm sorry, but Columbia is an easy town to fall in love with. Yeah. It really is, for a lot of myriad reasons. And Quincy is an extension of that with the sports culture. I never really experienced shock. I mean, I go home every year to see my folks. I do the things I want to do for a week out in California. And then, Angie and I were standing in the parking lot at Costco in Folsom, and people were trying to kill us, trying to get into parking lots, into spaces. And it's like, I miss the Midwest. Let's go home.
When I was out in LA over Thanksgiving, I had the pleasure of driving on Thanksgiving Day. So I drove the 405 and the 5 with hardly any traffic.
That never happens.
But it was Thanksgiving Day because
God bless you.
I had to take Alex somewhere and then go back to our in-laws, sister and brother-in-law's house. And it was just like, this is great. I can just drive around and it's not bumper to bumper. And
Don't get used to it.
Yeah, no, that's what my brother-in-law said. He says, I spent 20 years driving back and forth to work on that, and
Takes years off your life.
That's what he said. He retired early too, because he said, I spent 3.5, 4 hours on the road every day. Going 45 miles. No.
And again, you touched on the differences. It's like, I'm not an LA person. You can be a California person and not be an LA person. And decidedly, from sports interests to everything else about it, I just hated Los Angeles. And so Columbia, Missouri was like a heaven after, a year and a half stuck in. And if you know anything about USC, it's right smack in the middle of downtown and not a very good neighborhood. And you were worried for your life when you left campus a lot of the time. So it wasn't a great experience for me at USC.
But you made it to Mizzou, and you were there. Of course, one of our other mentors, Kent Collins, just passed not too terribly long ago. He was the director out there, and then then you went to Jeff City and under Rod, and then you came here, and then you never left. A lot of it was the kids, I know. Yeah. But what else? You had other chances. You had other offers.
I can remember going, and I think 4 years in here, I had a job offer in Paducah, which may not sound like much, but it was a 75 market jump. And at that time, that was kind of unheard of, right?
Unlike today.
Yeah, where you can start just about anywhere you want.
I'm going so people go to Quincy, Chicago. It's like, what?
I went there, Bob, and I did my resume audition, and it was seriously, at that point, the greatest sportscast I ever anchored. They could have been lobbing grenades at me. I could have been putting the pin back in and still ad-libbing because they offered me the job on the spot. Yeah. And then they said, well, we do 2 minutes of sports a night. I'm like, I can't even say hello in 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
So it was really, it made me appreciative of having the ability to ask for 8 minutes on a Friday night, 10 minutes. We used to do those long form hour and a half football shows about our all do or die teams that were on air. Yeah. I mean, you can't do that anywhere else in the country. And it's always been beguiling. And quite frankly, when you come here, the people are the draw. It's not me telling you that. It's legitimate. You have great neighbors. You have great friends. And when you have kids, it amplifies different.
Especially now you're a grandpa.
And it is the best gig in the entire world. I live for Sundays. 4 years old. Aww. He is the absolute best, and he wears me out in the best possible ways. I used to think I was young for my age, and I always thought it would be really cool. I'm the youngest grandpa I know, right? Yeah. And I go, and an hour later of Paw Patrol and Pop Hide and Seek and everything that we play, and I'm done. I never used to nap, and now I'm a napper. Yes.
I love naps.
He is like cold fusion. The energy just keeps coming off of him.
Have you seen any good kids? Do you watch any kids movies?
I watch a lot of Paw Patrol. We're starting to move.
Movies, I was going to say.
Our first movie experience was the Paw Patrol movie, which just came out, which was 90, I think it was 80 minutes, and it was probably 77 minutes too long. But did he enjoy it? Oh, he enjoyed it.
But at 4 years old, was he able to sit there?
He was able to sit. He got a little antsy. But because of this, the intended favorite Santa gift this year is a Paw Patrol aircraft carrier.
Wait, what's the aircraft carrier? Like, how does it?
It is a
explain?
legitimate aircraft carrier that fits all the Paw Patroller specific vehicles on it, so that they apparently can project strength in the Middle East if the Paw Patrollers need to. So.
You might want to tell Taylor that if Banks happens to be watching Club Muddy to like turn at this point.
Well, I'm not. Yes, I'm not saying anybody's getting anything. The naughty list.
The naughty list.
But I've seen the list, and it
that's
is substantial.
funny. That's funny. Any other good shows or movies that you've been watching?
This time of year, I really don't get a chance to kind of sit down the way I want to. Angie and I, because I'm off, because of my schedule, I usually take the entire month of July and a little bit of August off. And that's when we catch up. And so I got her finally to agree to watch The Bear, which is probably my favorite thing that I've watched since Mad Men went off the air.
Gosh.
Have you seen it?
A little bit, yeah, but it stresses me out, like because
It's
I
supposed
work.
to, yes, because you work in that industry,
and but it is so right. It's spot on.
The
it really
music
is.
intensity, then it turns up when it's time to go.
I
in a
love that you
restaurant.
notice the music.
Yes.
Mike always notices the music of everything. You know. How about Only Murders in the Building?
I have not seen, and my wife wants to see that.
That would be a good one to binge. The music.
We also, Angie accidentally, and I don't know how it happened. She was watching Downton, and I got sucked in. I'm not an Anglophile. I'm not somebody but I got sucked in, and so Julian Fellows, who did Downton, now has something on called The Gilded Age on HBO.
Yeah, I've seen
with Christine Baranski, who's as funny as they come.
Yes. Yeah.
So we started trying to watch that a little bit. I think that's the one thing that we're actually trying to binge a little bit right now on the few hours that we have on Sunday. But it was like with the Tyler thing, it was like, oh man, I got to make time in my schedule to watch television, and I don't have that time right now.
Well, we're gonna. Brittany and I yesterday were talking about just some work stuff, and we were talking about the coverage area. Okay. Ours is like 8 to 10 counties roughly just here. Yours is massive, and you and I have always had this thing. I'm like, dude, quit killing yourself. Quit going to Triopia. Quit going to BFE. But you are like, no, these guys aren't going to get any coverage if I don't do it, and I'm going to go, and I do it. And again, we love our small communities that are within what I would consider, a reasonable distance to get somebody to, but the miles you put on, whether it's your vehicle or the Sports Rover or whatever you got going, just have to be incredible.
They are, and I don't like to think about it because at some point in my life, I'm going to realize how much of my time was spent in front of a windshield.
Yeah.
But, those are some of the most appreciative viewers we ever get, and
no
some
doubt
of the
about
loyalists.
No doubt about it.
And you are in the business now. We're all hustling for eyes. That's the reality of journalism. And we're fighting everything else. And I think, to some degree, we have to deliver more. Yeah. And that's why your hyper-local works. That's why going to the middle of nowhere to Clarksville to go to a Clopton game and dodging deer right and left at every turn kind of works.
It's just, I look at that and I look at what we're trying to do. And again, when you look at what we're doing and compared to what, the media was 25 years ago, I look at it as it's not different, that much different. Because you're still just trying to get the basic who, what, when, how, or why to people. But it's different in the fact that you have to offer so many different things to people now. And you really have to make people come watch you. Whereas pre-social media, you were running promos and doing whatever and, maybe buy a billboard and all that stuff. Now, we're just trying to use social media to draw our eyeballs, and that's something that Brittany's been really good at and helping us with is, she had the big social media following because of her bartending job, and she brought that to us, and our numbers have grown exponentially because of her, but also because of just everything that we're doing in our coverage and our videos and all that. It's the entire team. But it just so much, that to me, do you see it as being that much different except for the platform itself?
I think it's become more personal, honestly, which I think is the best part of it. You mentioned it with Brittany. I mean, it's not because she's bartending, it's because people know her and people want to, people want to trust the people and something that Rod Smith told me long ago in this business is people can spot a phony on television in a heartbeat. They got to know you're genuine. They got to know you care about where you're from. And I think that's the brilliance of what you guys have done is that, and what works for us is that people know we genuinely care about this community. You may not agree with my politics. You may not agree with my coverages. You may not agree with my, opinions on certain sports players or whatever. but you know that we care because we're invested here. And I think that's the biggest thing that resonates with the way that we're doing it now. We have to bend over backwards. And you and I have had the advantage of seeing newspapers collapse. So it adds a certain level of imperative for the way we do things.
25 years ago, did they have entertainment opinion op-eds in
Certainly not about Taylor Swift at that time.
I don't remember what Steve was writing about back then. I don't know if he had a column or what. So,
But he had
he was
a
writing about Quincy Raceways. I know that.
Yes, he
aside from
was.
everything else,
A legend.
yeah, no, Steve. Again, yeah, Steve's on the road again. Well, yeah, this is that time of year, as you well know. I mean, you're going to leave here to cover 3 games.
Yeah, that's tonight's
Oh
schedule.
my gosh.
Monroe City tournament tonight or not?
So here's the deal. It's going to depend on when I get back, how quickly I can get out of Quincy University.
Yeah.
That part of it. I have a little bit of help tonight, but we've been to the Monroe City tournament a lot this week, and I'm trying to balance that with, okay, is there something interesting in Illinois? Because obviously when Saturday rolls around again, that's going to be the focal point. That and Q&D Hannibal, and you're trying to, a lot of it is like kissing babies and being mayor. You're trying to be as politically out there and balanced as you humanly can. So
One other media aspect, it's not media of his job, but it's just the media atmosphere in general, is you mentioned the demise of newspapers or the shrinking of newspapers. You remember the days when you'd look up in the corner at Blue Devil Gym and there'd be 4, sometimes maybe 5, 6 radio stations there, and now there aren't any hardly.
Steve Luton mentioned that to me the other night. They said, we've got 2 television cameras, we've got a radio station doing live play-by-play, and we had 2 newspaper reporters along the baseline. Where else in the country do you think that's happening?
They still had that. That was still at the game the other night.
At a Monroe City game the other night.
Were
It's
they
like
all in the same
all
station?
in the same spot. We were all...
Same station, though, or like different
No,
people?
stations.
different media.
Okay.
Like the entire tri-state media was represented there.
Gotcha.
at that
Steve was
particular
there that night too,
and Steve was right in there too. So it was like your site was there, all of the media is there, and that just doesn't happen anywhere else anymore. And the interesting thing to me is you look at the bigger markets, and everybody's trying to figure out the forest for the trees. Some of what they're doing is throwing back to what we were doing 25 years ago and becoming hyper local.
Yeah.
Because they can't get away with, we're going to talk about the pro teams, because there's other coverage sources for that now. So
yes, we have had there have been a few sports directors who've churned in and out of here over the last 30 years who Chris has seen come and go. And it used to be a thing. Yeah, if I just show Cardinals and Cubs highlights in the summer, I'm fine.
Right.
And it's like, well, no, that's not
bringing
how it
anybody
works.
to the table.
Yeah, no. I mean, they're going to watch that on ESPN, or they're going to actually watch the game instead of just watching, go find that little people's story or go find whatever. So
What are your thoughts on a sports complex or us investing in? Because there have been chats about locally, a sports complex being the investment or the focus instead of, I guess, other things. Maybe I shouldn't say instead of. We're probably just adding to it because we're a leviathan of a city.
I think we're such a unique culture with sports that I think there is a market for that. I also think we're uniquely attuned as a community to trying to draw people here rather than having to send people away. I look at what Future Champions, the former Lens, does every summer. Now, I have strong, vehement opinions about serving alcohol at games that involve young people, because I think you're setting yourself up for a lawsuit, which is another debate entirely down the road, because parents are tough to deal with when they're sober. Just speaking.
yeah.
But I think if there's something that you can bring to this community that pumps people into this community for a weekend, I think that's a benefit to all of us, because it resonates not just with sports fans. It resonates at the Target. It resonates at the restaurants. It resonates for people who come from smaller communities to Quincy to fit in as part of this. So I do think that there is some value to that, but there is also some cost to that as well, that, in this day and age, it's hard to find the startup capital to make something of that kind of ilk happen, and you've got to fight through a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of fight back on that.
Well, we have a food and beverage tax, so.
That helps.
Drink up.
Also, along those same lines, though, you mentioned that, you're not going to see, in terms of just coaching, with the parents, with the way parents have changed, and I think a lot of this is due to the entitlement of, I've been paying for my kid to go do this all summer or whatever, by golly, they better play, and by golly, we better win. I think the days of seeing a Dave Bennett or somebody like that coach for that long, I think those days are long gone.
We would think, and yet I had this discussion the other day. Matt Long is still doing it. Melissa Friesmeier is still winning state championships up at Holy Trinity.
Well, ones who are there now. I'm talking like coaches who have probably been in within the last 5 to 10 years. I doubt that they're going to be doing it for another 5 to 10.
That's a really fun wrestle. It comes down to just how much you love what you do. And we've seen that play out in this community, obviously, of late with, is it worth the hassle? And, I don't mean to disparage volleyball, but there is an individuality to the volleyball experience with all of the club experiences and everybody kind of jockeying for whatever's next in their volleyball careers. And that is ancillary to what the team dynamic concept is. And it's really hard to build consensus when everybody has their own agenda. So I think volleyball is its own specifically unique issue. And look what we've seen volleyball do as well of late to girls basketball in the area. So many JV teams have dried up because all of those kids are playing volleyball rather than, club volleyball rather than, doing what they usually would and spreading themselves out in sport. So I do think volleyball coaching might be the toughest gig in the region right now.
That's
Yikes.
crazy.
I'm sure also just like you said, the times have changed. So even no matter how much you love your job, the surroundings and everything is made it like where the pressure is just different than it was. So
we've also gotten a lot more attuned to mental health. I think people are better about taking care of their own mental health, and the amount of, incursions into locker rooms and yelling that people are going to, tolerate anymore is, I could do better things with my time. So I think we've seen some of that.
All right, a little rapid fire before we go.
Yes,
Best. Your all-time favorite television show is?
It's probably still Mad Men, but not having the complete vision of what the Bear is yet. I mean, I've got that. Breaking Bad's in that conversation. Better Call Saul's in that conversation. I think the high points of The Sopranos are in that conversation, but it was just too uneven for me as a whole. So I would go Mad Men as my favorite of all time.
where was Game of Thrones? Because he told me that you were a Game of Thrones. I'm a huge Game of Thrones fan.
First 4.5 seasons of Game of Thrones was some of the most incredible television spectacle we've ever seen.
I thought, there were 7 or 8 seasons?
8 seasons.
Okay, so I thought they were all great, except that 8th season was the biggest fart I've ever seen.
Really? After the 4th season, yeah. I thought it got silly. I think Benioff and Weiss lost the whole control. I mean, showrunners have to have a directed vision, and it did not feel like they had a directed vision at the end of that.
Yeah.
So, Mad Men felt like a really good, cohesive piece, and, I think Dick Whitman / Don Draper is one of the best television characters in the history of television.
I have to watch. I've never watched Mad Men.
So good.
Maybe that's.
Hey, where'd John Hamm go? Hit John Actor, the actor who played him. Where'd he go to school?
I believe he was in Columbia, Missouri at one point or another.
Yes.
Listen, I don't have a problem with Columbia,
Your
Missouri.
boy does.
yes, he went to QU, but like
KU.
You
went to KU.
I went to
He
QU.
went to KU.
He went to KU. So that's what I was trying to it was a mouthful. I was trying to say I really don't have a dog in this fight. I went to QU.
Yeah, but you were blowing us shit over our coasters.
Mostly because the coaster is going to spill the wine
That's
all
why
over.
I moved the wine off the coaster. Favorite movie?
Favorite movie or best movie?
Favorite.
Both. Both.
Go both.
Okay, so favorite movie is more recent, and it's the movie I just can't stop watching anymore, and it's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I just adore that movie. And so much of it is you go into that movie, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody, with such a sense of dread if you know the history, and you can't help in this movie but fall in love with Margot Robbie as Sharon Tate, particularly the scenes with her watching the real Sharon Tate on screen with Dean Martin. And it's just such a wonderful, and it's a wonderful multiverse movie at the end that gives you, well, what if? And there's not a frame of that movie that feels wasted or bad. Every character is perfect, right down to the guy who does the spot-on Bruce Lee imitation. I mean, it's just such a fun watch.
Pitt's good in that too.
They're all good, but that's probably the best Brad Pitt. I believe he went to Mizzou, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Oh my God.
Yes, he did. He is a Mizzou university. Well,
You guys
not graduate
planned
though.
this.
Not a
3
graduate.
hours short, and he went to J school.
Yes, he did.
That was the
Advertising.
best or your favorite?
So that would be my favorite. I
Okay.
still think the best, and you can put them in whatever order you want, is 1 and 2 of The Godfather.
Yeah.
I prefer 2 over 1.
What's your favorite movie?
I don't know. I don't really have a favorite. I used to always say when dreams or when dream. I can't even think of it. What Dreams May Come, the one with Robin Williams. It was like
a very good movie.
It was an all over, like it was tragedy, it was comedy, it was fantasy. But yeah, I don't know.
Mine's cheesy. It's Tombstone.
I have probably seen Tombstone more times than I can probably Tombstone and Roadhouse.
A Few Good Men.
Few Good Men
I've
is
seen
awesome.
it's whenever it's on. I mean, it's there's just this handful of movies that whenever they're on, okay, I gotta watch
The Godfather is our Christmas. When we put up the Christmas tree, that's our ritual.
There's actually
that's holly jolly.
I know.
There's actually a linear telling of The Godfather that starts, historically with the De Niro stuff and goes like with a bunch of scenes that never appeared in Coppola's cut. It's called The Godfather Saga, and I watched it and it was mind blowing. You get like closure on. Michael Corleone settles all scores with the guy that bombed Apollonio's car. It's called The Godfather Saga. You have to either buy it or rent it, but it's told sequentially from the minute that Vito Andolini lands in America to, they don't include any of three.
None of the threes in it.
Or should they?
All family business must be settled.
Yes, it must.
I don't have any other of those kind of cool questions. Do you have? Musical artist.
Oh yeah, well, do we know who the Super Bowl is?
It's Usher.
Okay, Usher.
Yeah, Usher's doing the Super Bowl this year. There's another guest, and I can't remember who it was, but I remember specifically. They did all those commercials with, Usher picking up the phone and going, hey, are you ready for this? And that's all I remember that. So I think Usher will be a very entertaining.
He's great.
Did your all-time favorite performer perform at a halftime show of a Super Bowl?
Oh, that's easy. I mean, there was only one that mattered. I mean, the one that mattered at a level beyond anybody else.
Who?
Can you make it rain harder? Prince Rogers Nelson. I mean, that was
kept playing.
Yeah. Well,
I'm not
then
canceling.
He did that. I don't know if you've ever seen the video. He did that press conference going into that, and he goes, will there be any questions? Somebody chimes in and he hits instantly. My beautiful sainted wife, I think I told you this story, Bob, 2 years ago took me to Paisley Park, which is my Graceland. Prince and the Afghan Wigs are my two favorite musical acts of all time, and there's a lot of similarity between the two and a lot of cohesion, but I got to go there. I stood next to the motorcycle. And then I told Angie she had to purify herself in the waters of Lake Minnetonka, and that extended the conversation right there. So that was the end of that. But, oh, man, Prince's place.
Prince, nothing compares to you. Who did it better, him or Sinead?
I think Prince did everything better than anybody.
I knew you were going to say that anyway. See, I think that one's debatable, but
Prince
I don't know.
famously hated to be covered. And so when he did the Super Bowl appearance, he did a cover of Dave Grohl doing The Best of You. And it was a fire back because Grohl did Darling Nikki. And it was like,
wait, don't they have to give each other permission?
No, not when you're doing it in concert. You can just, you can just
play whatever.
But it's like Prince always fired back on the people who tried to cover him. And I always found that just fascinating about the guy.
His best cover, though, was on stage with all the guitar virtuosos, and he killed them all, and While My Guitar Gently Weeps.
He throws the guitar up and it never comes down.
He just and Winwood and all these guys are just looking at him, and Petty, all these guys are just looking at him like, because he just took over.
They asked Clapton after Hendrix died, what's it feel like to be the best guitarist alive? He said, I don't know, go ask Prince.
Ask Prince, yeah.
I mean, it's just, he was not of this earth. To this day, I mean, and some of my favorite stuff is stuff that never was popular. I mean, and the vault keeps opening, which is the really cool thing.
Yeah, as long as you, there's always going to be lost archives and all this other stuff they're going to dig up.
Who's getting that?
His family. Well, there's a
Estate.
big debate, but largely the estate and his family at this point.
Right.
But he didn't have any children, did he?
He had one child that died, within a year of childbirth.
Yeah.
That we
Interesting.
know of. Yeah, so
I'm not very Prince savvy.
Who's your favorite performer then? Brittany?
Yeah. I knew you were like, it is, kind of.
So where are you on Taylor Swift?
I love her. I love her more, though, for my daughter. My daughter really looks up to her. I saw somebody, like I said, when people were just going nuts over this, and I heard somebody, like an adult, tell my daughter the other day, she's just like, Taylor sucks. It's like, why would you say this to this little girl about her idol that is influencing her to be creative in music? You know, like I listened to her trying to play Taylor on the piano. That
awesome.
And, she's big into Olivia Rodrigo too. But I don't care as long as people like it. But yeah, Britney was my Taylor back in.
My daughter and my wife are both Swifties, and I drove them and my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law and my niece to Chicago. I didn't go to the concert, but I stood outside for the first song and listened to Heartbreak Prince. I think that's the first song she plays. And just the deafening sound coming out of Soldier Field was just unreal.
Well, they've had nothing to cheer for the last 5 years. So,
But I also went to the concert movie with the girls. They dragged me because they had an extra ticket. I think she's great. And some of it, like Aaron Dessner, I love The National, one of my very favorite bands. And he produced, two of, like, Evermore and one other of her albums, I think. And that stuff's really good.
Yeah.
I mean, she's incredibly talented. You'll get no fight back from me on any of that.
my daughter's a huge Swiftie, and then my son, of course, managed to score some quality tickets for the Wrigley Field performance.
Wow.
And all that. So, he's a muckety buck now. So
he is a big deal, though. Now, if I would have liked to have seen Springsteen at Wrigley Field. I think, did he really? Lucky devil.
Oh, man.
he did. Yeah.
I mean, I think that would be, you want to talk about once-in-a-lifetime experiences, because I've seen Springsteen 7 times.
Oh, wow.
To see him in Wrigley Field, I think would have been something. But I've already seen your show 7 times. I don't know what more you could do to draw me back in, so.
Springsteen is one of my dad's favorites. And this lady asked me the other day when he was retiring, he goes, what are the things that your dad likes? She's like, I'm making cookies. I can't think of what her name is. She makes the best of these cookies. I showed you the pictures of them. I'm like, he likes the Boss, Santa Claus, and Jesus Christ. And she made pictures of
that's
all
impressive.
of it. Was great.
A good rundown right there.
Well, although if the Cardinals had a better season, the Cardinals would have made that top 3.
I think, but like the Cardinals, that's not a person. So Santa Claus.
People. Okay, that's good.
Yeah,
that's good. He is Mr. Christmas.
Yeah.
Just drive by the house there on Harrison Street.
Gosh.
It's all lit up.
Yep.
So, do you have anything else to ask our guest? Because she does have to go back to work.
Yeah. No, I'm not trying to rub it in your face. I get to go be a foodie, and I'm going to go pick up some Thai food, and I'm going to eat a little bit of this pizza. I'm going to sip a little bit of
you enjoy.
your wine.
I actually, much like Bob Goff, I was smart enough to take a pizza home.
Heck yeah, you did. Heck yeah, you did.
Because I know that I've outkicked my coverage, and I have to constantly pay that forward.
This will go in the oven as soon as I get home.
Man.
So we're good. So thank you, sir.
Thank you for
Thank
being
you guys for having
here.
me. By the way, just want to tell you, I was a little daunted because trying to follow up Andy Douglas and Kathy Dooley is like following up Quincy royalty here. I never felt more like a C-lister in my life.
I think you're part of the Quincy celebrity stars.
You're a Mount Rushmore kind of guy.
I'm more like, accidentally seeing Dancing Man on the way to Target than I am like those guys.
We drink and we know things around here.
Nice.
We'll put you ahead of Jason Priest, though. How's that?
We're not having him on the show.